This is going to be a busy week for credit union advocacy. We've got things taking place in Congress that we're paying close attention to, and also the NCUA board is going to meet on Thursday, and they'll be considering the budget for the agency as well as a proposal on field membership. The House and the Senate are returning from a short Veterans Day recess, and the House has a bill that's important to credit unions on the agenda. It would treat mortgages held in portfolio as qualified mortgages for purposes of the CFPB rulemaking. We're strongly supportive of this bill. We've testified in support of it many times. We're hopeful to see it pass the House this week. We're also following a hearing in the Energy and Commerce Committee. It's an oversight hearing on the Federal Communications Commission. May seem odd or unusual that we're paying close attention to a hearing on the FCC, but earlier this year the FCC issued an order on robocalls that we're very concerned with. We've had staff briefings on the Hill, we've sent letters, we've met with the FCC on this issue, and so this hearing will be an opportunity for us to make sure our concerns are raised with the Energy and Commerce Committee. Lastly, we're following the House-Senate Conference Committee on the Highway Trust Fund bill. Again, unusual that we are following a transportation issue, but this legislation has two key removing barriers provisions in it. One would modernize privacy notifications, and the other would permit privately insured credit unions to join the Federal Home Loan Bank. So the conference committee will begin its work this week. They face a Friday deadline when the current authorization expires, so if they're not able to complete their work this week, we think that Congress will pass a short-term extension to give them more time. In any case, we're really hopeful that these two provisions survive the conference process, and that's why we sent a letter last week to conferees encouraging them to retain the provisions. On Thursday, the NCUA board will meet for its November meeting, and one of the items on the agenda is the agency's budget. In advance of that meeting, we sent the agency a letter outlining our concerns with the budget. We sent this letter because once the board votes on it, it's not open for comment. So this was really our last opportunity to raise concerns about a budget that frankly we haven't seen yet. We expect the budget will represent an increase in agency costs, and that concerns us greatly. We think, frankly, the agency should be proposing budget reductions right now because the financial crisis is over. Credit unions are safe, sound, and healthy. But we expect that we'll see budget increases, and what we urge the agency to do was to, when they're proposing new regulations, look at how they can use existing resources to implement those regulations as opposed to requiring credit unions to pay more. We encourage them to move towards an 18-month examination cycle by trying to identify examination efficiencies, like having some examiners work off-site or work from home as opposed to sending a full team to a credit union. We encourage them to provide more transparency and accountability to the budget. Almost every dollar that the NCUA has is a dollar that's come from a credit union. And so we're rightfully concerned. We have an interest in how they use the budget, and frankly what we hear from credit unions is that they'd like more information about how the budget's put together and how it's used. So those are the main issues that we raised in this letter. So the other big issue on the NCUA's agenda this week is a proposed rule on field of membership. The NCUA has been working for a long time on this regulation. There was a working group, and earlier this year we sent a letter to that working group, and we outlined recommendations of actions that NCUA could take immediately without changing the rules, recommendations that would require a rule change, and then we also included in the letter things that we know would require statutory change, and that's a much longer term process. We saw the agency take its first step on one of those issues that doesn't really require a change in rule. That happened in October when the board voted to delegate the authority to approve community charter expansions to the Office of Consumer Protection. Very positive step forward. It shaves at least 2 months off that application process. Now we've got a proposal coming on Thursday that deals with regulatory changes. And so we're looking forward to changes in the definition of well-defined community, looking at combined statistical areas, looking at using political jurisdictions like a congressional district to define a well-defined community. We're looking for changes in TIPS charters so that credit unions can serve independent contractors that are a part of employee groups, and also looking at changes to the 3,000 member threshold when merging in credit unions, to see if there's a way to stay within the statutory guidelines, but also give credit unions the ability to do a little bit more for groups that may have more than 3,000 people in it, but perhaps we don't anticipate 3,000 folks joining the credit union. So we're going to take a close look at the proposal when it comes out on Thursday, but we're really excited, based on our conversations with the agency over the last several months, that this is going to be something that will be very positive for credit unions.